between the person you were and the person you could become. She could rebuild her career, reclaim her place in the spotlight, and prove to everyone that she deserved a second chance. The opportunities were there, the comeback interviews, the redemption documentaries, the carefully crafted return to relevance. All she had to do was perform recovery the way she'd once performed everything else. Or she could disappear, learn to exist without an audience, discover who she might be when no one was keeping score, risk becoming someone completely unknown, even to herself. The choice seems obvious until you realize what each path costs. Reclaiming fame means forever being the person defined by her worst moment, constantly proving she's grown past it. But choosing anonymity means abandoning any chance to use her platform for good, leaving others to face the same destruction she barely survived. How do you choose between the life you think you deserve and the life you might actually need? Between the person everyone expects you to be and the person you've never had the courage to become? When redemption and recovery pull in opposite directions, which voice do you follow? Chapter 1. The Fall. The green smoothie tastes like punishment, but I drink it anyway because my trainer says it'll make me photograph better. Everything I put in my mouth gets filtered through that question now. Will this make me look good on camera? I'm scrolling through Instagram in my trailer when my phone explodes. Not literally, but the notifications come so fast they blur together into one continuous buzz. My follow count climbs by thousands, then tens of thousands. Comments flood in faster than I can read them. This should feel good. This is what I've wanted since I was 16 and first saw myself on a reality show audition tape to be the person everyone's talking about. But my stomach twists as I read the first few comments. Disgusting human being. Hope you lose everything. This is who you really are. The video is everywhere. Security footage from 3 months ago. Me in the hotel lobby after the reunion show, drunk and furious, screaming at Marcus, my ex-boyfriend, my former scene partner, the person who knew exactly which words would destroy me. In the grainy footage, I'm calling him things I can't even type now. Slurs I learned from my father during his worst moments. Words that reveal the ugliest parts of where I come from. Who I was raised to be before I knew better. The worst part isn't what I said, it's that I meant it in that moment. Drunk and hurt and wanting to wound him the way he'd wounded me. The comments keep coming. Fire her from everything. She showed her true colours. Fake apology, coming in 3, 2, 1. My publicist Miranda calls before I can figure out what to say to any of this. Honey, we have a situation. Her voice has the strained calm of someone talking someone off a ledge. Have you seen it? I'm looking at it now. Don't read the comments. Whatever you do, don't read the comments. Too late. I'm already drowning in them. Where did this come from, I ask, though I already know. Marcus. It has to be Marcus. We ended things badly after the show, and he's the only one who would have access to hotel security footage. That doesn't matter right now. What matters is damage control. I need you to come to the office immediately. Don't talk to anyone. Don't post anything. Don't even think about posting anything. But I'm already thinking about posting something. An explanation. An apology. A way to make this make sense. The drive to Miranda's office passes in a blur of radio silence. I keep the music off because every song feels too loud, too much. The city looks different through the car windows, like everyone on the sidewalk is staring at me, recognizing me, judging me. Paranoia, I tell myself. But when we stop at a red light, the woman in the crosswalk actually does stare. She pulls out her phone and points it at my car. I slide down in my seat like a teenager hiding from my parents. Miranda's office building usually makes me feel important. Today it feels like a bunker. Her assistant doesn't make eye contact when she waves me through to the inner office. Sit, Miranda says before I'm fully through the door. We need to talk. 3 other people sit around her conference table. Her business partner James, a crisis management specialist whose name I don't catch. A lawyer in an expensive suit who introduces herself as Sarah. How bad is it, I ask. Bad. Miranda's usually perfect hair looks like she's been running her hands through it. Your Instagram mentions are up 900%. Your name is trending on Twitter. Entertainment Tonight wants a statement. The lawyer leans forward. Before we discuss response strategy, I need to ask, is there more? Any other footage, recordings, messages that could surface? The question hits like cold water. I think about drunk texts I've sent, photos I've posted and deleted, conversations I had thinking they were private. I don't know, I say quietly. Maybe. The silence that follows feels like judgment crystallizing in the air. Okay, Miranda says, finally. Here's what we're going to do. Chapter 2, Free Fall. The apology video films in Miranda's conference room, because my apartment doesn't have good lighting and hotels feel too risky now. Everything has to be controlled, contained, perfect. I've written 17 different versions of what to say. They all sound hollow. Just be genuine, Miranda coaches from behind the camera. Own it but don't grovel. Show growth. But how do you show growth from something that happened 3 months ago? How do you prove you've changed when the evidence suggests you haven't changed at all? I look directly into the lens. The red recording light blinks like an accusation. I want to address the video that's been circulating, I begin. My voice sounds smaller than usual, more fragile. The words I used were inexcusable. They don't represent who I am or who I want to be. But they do represent who I am. That's the problem. In that hotel lobby, drunk and hurt and wanting revenge, that was me. The real me. The me I've spent years trying to outgrow. I take full responsibility for my actions and I'm committed to doing better. The words feel like sand in my mouth. Corporate, calculated, everything people expect from a celebrity non-apology. We film 3 more takes before Miranda's satisfied. By the time we post it, I've lost 200,000 followers. The response is swift and brutal. Fake-ass apology. She's only sorry she got caught. This is damage control, not remorse. They're not wrong. My phone keeps buzzing with calls from people I haven't heard from in months. Fair-weather friends wanting to distance themselves. Publicists from brands I work with. My agent probably calling to drop me. I turn it off and drive home in silence. My apartment feels different when everyone hates you. The same walls, same furniture, same view of the city, but everything's poisoned now. Contaminated by the knowledge that millions of people think I'm a terrible person. And maybe they're right. I pour myself a glass of wine even though it's 2 p.m, because regular rules don't apply when your career is ending in real time. The wine tastes bitter, but I drink it anyway, because I need something to make this feel less sharp. The doorbell rings. I ignore it. It rings again, and again. Through the peephole I see my mother, Janet. Still perfectly put together even though she drove 4 hours from Bakersfield to get here. "Honey," she says when I open the door, "I saw the news." She hugs me, and I break down crying for the first time since this started. Not the controlled tears I could use in an apology video. Ugly, choking sobs that come from a place deeper than strategy. "I'm so sorry." I gasp against her shoulder. "I'm so freaking sorry." "Language," she says automatically. Then, "It's okay, we'll figure this out." But it's not okay, and I'm not sure there's anything to figure out. Mum makes coffee while I sit at my kitchen counter, feeling like a child again. She doesn't ask me to explain what happened or why I said those things. She knows where I learned them. "Your father called," she says quietly. I tense. Dad and I haven't spoken in 2 years, not since he made those same comments about my gay cousin at Christmas dinner, and I told him exactly what I thought about his opinions. What did he say? That maybe people will finally see you're not as perfect as you pretend to be. The words hit like a physical blow. Even now, even when I'm destroyed, he can't resist twisting the knife. "I'm not perfect," I whisper. "I'm not even good." Mom sets down her coffee cup. "You're human, sweetheart. Humans make mistakes." This wasn't a mistake. This was who I really am when I'm hurt and angry. This was me choosing to be cruel because I wanted him to hurt the way he hurt me. She's quiet for a long moment. Then maybe this is your chance to choose differently. That night, alone in my apartment with my phone still turned off, I sit in my bathtub fully clothed and think about disappearing. Not dying. I'm not that far gone, but vanishing. Moving somewhere nobody knows my name. Starting over as someone completely different. The water gets cold, but I don't get out. I just sit there in my ruined designer dress, wondering if there's a version of me that could exist without cameras and social media, and the constant performance of being someone worth watching. By morning, I've lost 3 endorsement deals and my recurring role on a Netflix series. By the end of the week, my agent drops me. The free fall feels almost peaceful once you stop fighting it. Chapter 3. Rock Bottom. 3 months later, I'm working at a coffee shop in Portland. Not as research for a role, not as part of some comeback strategy, because I need money, and this is the only place that would hire someone whose name brings up a viral scandal when Googled. My manager Destiny is 19 and has never watched reality TV. To her, I'm just Alex, the new girl who's older than most baristas but doesn't seem to have any other job experience. "You sure you haven't done customer service before?" she asks on my 3rd day, watching me fumble with the register. "You seem like, I don't know, like you're used to people waiting on you instead." She's not wrong. I haven't ordered my own coffee in 5 years, haven't grocery shopped, cleaned my own apartment, or figured out health insurance. Fame, even D-list reality show fame, insulates you from normal life until you forget how to live it. The customers mostly ignore me, which feels like mercy. A few double takes from people who almost recognize me. But Portland is full of people trying to forget their past lives. I blend in better than I expected. My apartment is a studio that costs more than I make, but it's what I could get with damaged credit and no references besides Miranda, who stopped returning my calls last month. The mattress sits on the floor. The kitchen consists of a hot plate and a mini fridge that makes aggressive humming sounds all night. I sleep 14 hours a day when I'm not working, not because I'm depressed, though I probably am, but because consciousness requires dealing with who I've become. Sleep is the only time I don't have to think about the fact that my entire adult life was a performance that ended with everyone discovering I'm exactly as ugly as my worst moments suggested. On Tuesday evening, a woman comes into the coffee shop and stares at me for too long. She's my age, professionally dressed, probably a lawyer or consultant or someone with a real career. She orders a cappuccino and says, "You look familiar. Are you on TV?" My heart stops. No, just one of those faces, I guess. She studies me while I make her drink, and I can see the moment recognition clicks. Oh my God, you're that girl from that reality show, the one who said all that racist stuff. The coffee shop goes quiet. Destiny looks over from the register. The other customers turn to stare. That wasn't. I start, then stop. What's the point? It was exactly that. The woman takes her cappuccino and leaves without another word. But the damage is done. Everyone in the shop is looking at me now, remembering, judging. I finish my shift with shaking hands and burning cheeks. Destiny doesn't say anything, but she starts scheduling me for morning shifts only. Fewer customers, less chance of recognition. That night, I call my mum for the first time in 2 weeks. "I can't do this anymore," I tell her. "I can't keep pretending I'm going to rebuild some kind of life. I'm 28 years old and I'm living like a college dropout." "Then don't pretend," she says. "Do something real instead." Like what? I don't know how to do anything real. I've been performing since I was 18. I don't know who I am when nobody's watching. Then maybe it's time to find out. After we hang up, I sit on my mattress on the floor and think about that question seriously for the first time. Who am I when nobody's watching? I don't know. For 10 years, my entire identity has been built around being seen, being talked about, being relevant. Without an audience, I don't exist. But maybe that's the problem. Maybe the person who said those horrible things in that hotel lobby was someone who only existed in relation to other people's opinions. Someone who measured her worth by whether people loved her or hated her, as long as they felt something. Maybe learning to exist without an audience is exactly what I need to do. The next morning, I buy a notebook from the dollar store and start writing. Not for publication, not for social media, not for anyone but me. I write about growing up in a house where love was conditional on performance, about learning to charm my way out of trouble before I learned to avoid trouble in the first place, about the specific moment in that hotel lobby when I chose cruelty over vulnerability. I write about the customers at the coffee shop who treat me like I'm invisible, and how that feels like both punishment and relief, about Destiny, who judges me only on whether I show up on time and make decent lattes. I write about the person I was before cameras taught me to consider everything in terms of how it would look to other people. It takes 3 weeks to fill the notebook. By the time I finish, something has shifted. Not redemption, I'm not ready for that word, but recognition. of who I am when I'm not trying to be anyone else. That's when I decide to do the hardest thing I've ever done, something scarier than being hated by millions of people. I decide to try becoming someone worth respecting, even if nobody ever notices. Chapter 4: Learning to be Human. The community centre where I volunteer smells like industrial disinfectant and hope. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, I help serve dinner to people who remind me uncomfortably of who I might have been if reality TV hadn't temporarily rescued me from my own bad choices. Carla, the volunteer coordinator, is a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who treats everyone formerly homeless, formerly famous, formerly anything, exactly the same. "Can you handle cutting vegetables without injuring yourself?" she asked during my first shift. "I think so." "Good. We need someone on prep. Don't expect anyone to care who you used to be. People here have bigger problems than whatever happened on your TV show." She was right. Nobody here watches reality TV. They're too busy surviving. Marcus, different Marcus, this one 60 years old with hands that shake from years of hard living, teaches me how to dice onions without crying. "Trick is to keep the root end intact," he explains patiently, "and don't get emotionally attached to the process." I wonder if he knows he's giving me life advice disguised as cooking tips. The people we serve are mostly polite, sometimes grateful, occasionally hostile. They don't care about my scandal because they have their own problems: drug addiction, mental illness, bad luck compounded by worse choices, stories that make my public humiliation look like a paper cut. "You're that girl, aren't you?" one woman asks during my 3rd week. She's younger than me, with prematurely grey hair and scars on her arms that tell their own story. The one from TV. I brace myself for judgment. "Yeah." She nods thoughtfully. "Fame screw you up pretty good?" "Yeah." "Good. Maybe now you can figure out who you actually are." Her name is Sam, and she becomes my first real friend in Portland. Not because she doesn't know about my past, but because she doesn't care. She's got bigger concerns, like maintaining her sobriety and finding stable housing and rebuilding relationships with the family members who still speak to her. "Recovery is weird," she tells me one evening as we walk to the bus stop after our shift. "First you have to admit you're completely screwed up. Then you have to figure out how to be a person without all the stuff that made you feel like a person before." "Are you talking about drugs or fame?" She laughs. "Both, probably. Addiction is addiction. I start seeing a therapist. Not because I want to make a comeback or because my publicist suggested it for optics, because Sam recommended hers, and because I'm tired of not understanding why I made the choices I made. Dr. Chen is a small woman with enormous patience. She doesn't ask about my career or my scandal or my plans for the future. She asks about my childhood, about my relationship with my father, about the difference between who I think I should be and who I actually am. "Tell me about the last time you felt genuinely proud of yourself," she says during our 4th session. I think for a long time, I honestly can't remember. Not from your TV show, not from your success. That wasn't pride, that was relief. Relief that people were paying attention to me, but I never felt proud of who I was. I felt proud of how well I could perform being someone people wanted to watch. "And who did you want to be before the cameras?" Another long silence. "I don't know. I've been performing for so long I'm not sure there was ever a real me underneath." "There's always a real you underneath," she says gently. "But sometimes you have to dig pretty deep to find her." The digging takes months. Therapy once a week. Journaling every morning. Volunteering at the community centre. Working at the coffee shop. Living a completely ordinary life for the first time since I was 18. Slowly, I start to recognize someone I might actually like, someone who shows up when she says she will, who listens more than she talks, who helps without expecting credit or recognition, someone who exists even when nobody's watching. 6 months into my Portland life, my phone buzzes with a text from a number I don't recognize. "Saw you on the news, the community center thing. Looks like you're doing good. Happy for you. -M." Marcus. My Marcus. The one who leaked the video that destroyed my life. I stare at the message for 10 minutes before responding. "Why did you do it?" His reply comes an hour later. "Because you needed to hit bottom before you could start climbing back up. And because I was angry and wanted to hurt you. Both things can be true." I delete the conversation without responding. Some apologies aren't mine to give or receive yet. That night, I sit in my tiny apartment and think about forgiveness. Not the public kind that happens on talk shows and social media. The private kind that happens when you finally understand that the worst thing anyone has ever done to you might also be the thing that saves you. I'm not ready to forgive Marcus. I may never be ready, but I'm starting to forgive myself. And that feels like the beginning of something bigger than a comeback. It feels like the beginning of becoming real. Chapter 5. The Long Way Back. The email sits in my inbox for 3 days before I open it. The sender is Miranda, my former publicist, and the subject line reads, Opportunity. I've been in Portland for 8 months now. 8 months of coffee shop shifts and volunteer work and therapy sessions and learning to exist without an audience. 8 months of building something that feels like an actual life instead of a performance. The email is short, Alex. I hope you're well. A production company reached out about a documentary on redemption stories. They're specifically interested in your journey. The pay is substantial, and it could be a path back to the industry if that's something you're considering. Let me know if you want to discuss.
Best, Miranda?
My first instinct is to delete it. I've worked too hard to build this quiet, honest life to risk it for another chance at fame. Fame is what got me into trouble in the first place. But the money would solve problems. Real problems. Like the fact that I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and my car needs repairs I can't afford. Like the fact that student loans from acting classes I took years ago are still following me around like hungry ghosts. I call Sam. Sounds like a trap, she says immediately. Remember what we talked about? About how the thing that almost destroyed you starts looking appealing again once you get some distance from it? But what if it's different this time? What if I'm different? Are you? The question sits heavy between us. Am I different? Or am I just the same person with a better understanding of how to perform authenticity? I don't know, I say honestly. Then that's your answer. When you know for sure, then you can make that choice. But the email nags at me. Not because I miss fame, I don't. Not really. But because I miss having enough money to not worry about money. I miss having options. I miss feeling like I was building towards something bigger than just surviving. A week later, I'm making lattes when a man in an expensive suit walks into the coffee shop. He looks out of place among the freelancers and students who make up our usual clientele. Alex. He approaches the counter with the confidence of someone used to being important. I'm David Chen from Redemption Films. I was hoping we could talk. My stomach drops. He followed up the email with an actual visit. This is either very good or very bad. I'm working, I say quietly. I can wait. He orders a black coffee and sits in the corner for 2 hours, occasionally glancing my way with the patience of a hunter. Other customers notice him noticing me. Destiny shoots me questioning looks. When my shift ends, he approaches again. 5 minutes, he says. That's all I need. Against my better judgment, I sit down across from him. I've been following your story, he begins. What happened to you, and more importantly, what you've done since. The volunteer work, the way you've rebuilt your life. It's exactly the kind of story we want to tell. Why? Because people need to see that redemption is possible, that you can come back from your worst moment and become someone better. The words sound familiar, like something I might have said during my brief stint as a motivational social media presence, back when I thought inspiration could be packaged and sold. What do you actually want from me? Access, interviews, behind-the-scenes footage of your current life. We'd follow you for 3 months, document your journey, show how someone can rebuild after losing everything. And what do I get? $50,000 plus potential career rehabilitation if the documentary does well. $50,000. More money than I'll make in 2 years at the coffee shop. Enough to pay off debt, get a better apartment, maybe even go back to school for something useful. I need to think about it, I say. Of course, but Alex, he leans forward. This could be your chance to control the narrative again, to show people who you really are instead of letting them define you by your worst moment. After he leaves, I sit in the empty coffee shop and think about narratives, about the difference between controlling your story and living your life, about whether it's possible to do both. That night, I call Dr. Chen, not David Chen from the production company. Dr. Chen, my therapist. I got offered a documentary deal. I tell her. How do you feel about that? Terrified and tempted, and like maybe I've been hiding in Portland instead of actually healing. What makes you think you've been hiding? I don't know. Maybe because real healing would mean going back into the world and proving I've changed. Maybe because staying here feels safe but not necessarily brave. Or maybe, she says gently, real healing means not needing to prove anything to anyone except yourself. We talk for an hour about the difference between privacy and hiding, about whether redemption requires a public audience or if it can happen quietly, in community centre kitchens and therapy sessions, and honest conversations with friends who don't care what you used to be famous for. By the end of the call, I know what I need to do. I email David Chen back. Thank you for the opportunity, but I'm not interested in being part of your documentary. I'm not ready to turn my healing into content, and I may never be. I hope you understand.
Alex?
His response comes within an hour. Are you sure? This could change everything for you. I don't reply, because I'm finally learning the difference between changing everything and changing the things that actually matter. But saying no to the documentary isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a different kind of comeback. One that happens quietly, without cameras, in the space between who I was and who I'm becoming. 3 months later, Sam relapses. I find out when she doesn't show up for our volunteer shift. Carla tells me she was arrested for possession and public intoxication. She's back in jail, probably looking at serious time because this isn't her first offence. I visit her the next day. She looks smaller in the orange jumpsuit, but not defeated, just tired. I'm sorry, she says immediately. I know you looked up to me or whatever. Sorry I let you down. You didn't let me down. You're human. Humans screw up sometimes. She laughs bitterly. That's what I told myself when I bought the pills. Just this once, just to get through this crappy day. Funny how just this once always turns into just this once again. What can I do? Nothing. That's not how this works. I have to climb out of this hole myself. She pauses. But maybe you could keep volunteering at the centre? Keep doing the work we were doing together? Of course. And Alex, don't use this as an excuse to think you can't trust anyone. Don't let my screw-up make you give up on people. I promise her I won't. But driving home, I think about how easy it would be to use Sam's relapse as evidence that nothing really changes, that everyone eventually reveals their worst selves, that my own attempts at growth are probably just as temporary and illusory as everyone else's. But that's addict thinking, recovery thinking, the kind of thinking that turns setbacks into excuses to stop trying. Instead, I double down. More volunteer shifts, more therapy, more honest conversations with myself about who I want to be and why. 6 months later, Sam gets out of jail. She's different, more careful, more fragile, but also more determined. She starts attending meetings again, rebuilds her routine, asks for help when she needs it. Recovery isn't linear, she tells me over coffee one Tuesday morning. I thought I had it figured out, thought I was past all that. But the work never stops. You have to choose to be the person you want to be every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That afternoon, I get another email, not from a production company or a publicist or anyone trying to turn my life into content, from a woman named Jessica who found my volunteer coordinator's contact information online. Dear Alex, I hope this doesn't sound weird, but I've been following your story, not the scandal part, the after part, what you've been doing in Portland. My daughter is 16 and struggling with some things that remind me of what you went through. Not fame stuff, but the pressure to be perfect, to perform all the time. I was wondering if you might be willing to talk to her, not as a celebrity or anything, just as someone who understands. Thank you, Jessica. I stare at the email for a long time. This is what David Chen was talking about, isn't it? Using my experience to help other people, making my story into something useful. But this isn't about making a documentary or rebuilding my career. This is about one scared kid who needs to hear that you can survive being your own worst enemy. I reply, Dear Jessica, I'd be happy to talk to your daughter, but not as someone who has it all figured out, just as someone who's learning to figure it out one day at a time. Alex! The conversation happens over Zoom. Jessica's daughter Maya is 16, beautiful, and carries herself with the kind of defensive confidence I recognize from my own teenage years. She's been posting increasingly desperate content on TikTok, chasing viral moments and validation from strangers. Everyone says I should just ignore the haters, Maya tells me. But when there are thousands of them and only a few people saying nice things, it's hard to know which ones to believe. Both, I say. Believe both. Some people hate you for no good reason. Some people love you for no good reason. But the only opinion that matters is the one you have of yourself when you're alone and honest. How do you know if your opinion of yourself is accurate, though? Like, what if you think you're good, but you're actually terrible? The question hits deeper than she probably intended. I don't know if you ever know for sure, but I think you have to try to be the person you could respect, and then trust that effort matters more than the outcome. We talk for an hour about social media and self-worth, and the difference between being seen and being known, about making mistakes that feel like they define you forever, and how they don't have to. At the end of the call, Maya says, "Do you think you'll ever go back to being famous?" I don't know, maybe, but if I do, I want to make sure I'm someone worth being famous for first. After we hang up, I sit in my apartment and think about that question. Do I want to go back to being famous? The honest answer is more complicated than yes or no. I don't miss the fame itself, the constant attention, the performance anxiety, the way everything becomes content, but I miss having a platform to potentially do good with. I miss the resources to help people like Maya on a larger scale. Maybe the question isn't whether to go back to being famous. Maybe the question is how to build something meaningful that happens to have an audience. That night, I start writing again. Not in my private journal this time, something that might eventually be shared. A blog post about redemption and recovery, and the difference between healing in public and healing in private. I don't publish it immediately. Instead, I let it sit for a week, then share it with Dr. Chen during our next session. "This is good," she says after reading it. "Honest? Helpful? How do you feel about the idea of sharing it?" "Terrified, and like it might be important." Both of those things can be true. Is that okay to be scared and do it anyway? That's what courage is. Not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. I published the post on Medium. No fanfare, no promotion, no strategy. Just one person sharing what they've learned in case it helps someone else. Within a week, it has been read by 50,000 people. The comments are mixed, some supportive, some skeptical, some from people sharing their own stories of failure and recovery. But buried in the responses is a message that makes everything worthwhile. Thank you for writing this. I've been struggling with my own comeback from a public mistake, and reading your words helped me realize that maybe the point isn't getting back to where I was. Maybe the point is becoming someone I can live with. Maya, Jessica's daughter, the scared 16-year-old who needed to hear that survival was possible. That's when I understand what my real comeback looks like. Not a return to fame for its own sake, not a documentary or a publicity campaign or a redemption tour, but using what I learned in the dark to light a path for other people who are still finding their way. The work begins small, blog posts about authenticity and recovery, Zoom calls with young people struggling with social media pressure, volunteer shifts at the community centre where I learn as much as I teach. But it grows, slowly, organically, without strategy or management or anyone trying to turn it into content. It grows because it's real, and in a world full of performance, real is rare enough to be revolutionary. Chapter 6. Building Something That Lasts. 2 years after the scandal, I'm invited to speak at a high school in Seattle. The invitation comes through email from a guidance counselor named Mr. Rodriguez. He found my blog through a parent who shared one of my posts about social media and self-worth. The school has been dealing with a wave of cyberbullying incidents, and he thinks my perspective might help. "We can't pay much," he writes apologetically. "Maybe enough to cover gas money. But these kids need to hear from someone who understands what it's like to be destroyed online and come back from it." I drive to Seattle in my 12-year-old Honda, the same car I've been driving since my coffee shop days. It needs new tires and makes concerning noises when I brake too hard, but it gets me there. The school is typical suburban public education: beige walls, fluorescent lighting, that particular smell of industrial cleaning products and teenage anxiety. The auditorium holds maybe 300 students, but only about 50 show up to my presentation. Most of them probably don't know who you are, Mr. Rodriguez explains as we set up, which is probably good for your purposes. He's right. To these kids, I'm not a fallen celebrity trying to rehabilitate my image. I'm just some adult who volunteered to talk to them about not letting social media ruin their lives. How many of you have ever posted something online that you regretted? I ask the small audience. Almost every hand goes up. How many have ever had something posted about them that they couldn't control? Fewer hands, but still a significant number. And how many have ever felt like the internet version of you became more real than the actual you? Now I have their attention. This is the question they didn't know they needed to ask. I tell them my story, not the sanitized version from my blog posts, but the messy truth. The reality show that turned me into a character. The scandal that made me infamous. The slow, unglamorous work of figuring out who I was underneath all the performance. The worst part, I explain, wasn't that people hated me. It was that I had been performing for so long, I didn't know if there was a real me underneath the character I'd created. A girl in the front row raises her hand. How did you figure it out? I stopped performing, completely. I got a regular job, moved somewhere nobody knew me, and lived like a normal person for the first time in my adult life. It was terrifying and boring, and the best thing I ever did for myself. A boy near the back calls out, "But didn't you want to be famous again?" Every day. Fame is addictive. Even bad fame feels better than being ignored. But I learnt the difference between being seen and being known. Being famous means millions of people see a version of you. Being known means a few people understand who you actually are. The conversation continues for an hour. They ask about social media strategy, about handling online bullies, about the difference between confidence and arrogance. They share their own stories of digital drama and identity confusion. When it's over, several students approach me individually. A sophomore who's been struggling with an eating disorder triggered by Instagram comparisons. A senior who made a racist joke on Snapchat and can't get colleges to look past it. A freshman whose private texts were screenshotted and shared, destroying her friend group. Each conversation feels like a tiny redemption. Not for me. I'm not collecting credits towards some cosmic forgiveness score. But for them, proof that survival is possible. That mistakes don't have to be permanent. That there's life after your worst moment goes viral. Driving back to Portland, I think about the word comeback. It implies returning to a place you've been before, but I'm not the same person who got famous 10 years ago. I don't want to go back to who I was. Instead, I'm becoming someone I've never been before. Someone who exists whether people are watching or not. Someone whose value doesn't fluctuate with public opinion. The speaking engagement leads to others. Not celebrity appearances or publicity tours, but real conversations with real people dealing with real problems. A community college class on digital literacy. A parents group struggling to understand their teenagers' online lives. A non-profit working with young people aging out of foster care who use social media to create the families they never had. Each speaking fee goes into a savings account I've labelled Next Phase without knowing what that phase will look like. I'm not planning a comeback in the traditional sense. I'm just building resources and credibility so that when the right opportunity presents itself, I'll be ready. The opportunity comes from an unexpected source. Maya, the 16-year-old I talked to over Zoom 2 years earlier. She's 18 now, a freshman at UC Berkeley studying psychology, and she sends me an email that changes everything. Alex, I know this might sound crazy, but I have an idea I wanted to run by you. I'm starting a non-profit organization focused on digital wellness for teenagers, not just don't cyberbully presentations, but actual education about social media psychology, authentic self-presentation online, recovery from viral shame. I've been thinking about our conversation a lot over the past 2 years. How you said the only opinion that matters is the one you have of yourself when you're alone and honest. That changed my relationship with social media completely. Would you consider being on our advisory board? I know you're not doing the celebrity thing anymore, but this isn't about that. This is about using what we've learned to help other people avoid the same mistakes. Let me know what you think. Maya, I read the email 3 times before calling her. This is a big undertaking, I tell her. Do you have funding? A board of directors? Legal structure? Not yet, but I have a faculty advisor who's helping me figure out the non-profit paperwork. and I have a small grant from the university to get started. What I don't have is credibility with teenagers who are already in crisis. And you think I have that? I think you have something more valuable. You have proof that recovery is possible. We talk for 2 hours about her vision. Not just presentations and workshops, but a comprehensive program. Digital detox retreats, support groups for people dealing with online harassment, education programs for parents and teachers, resources for young people whose mistakes have gone viral. Why me? I ask finally. You could find someone with better credentials, someone without baggage. Because the baggage is the credential. You understand what these kids are going through because you've been there, and you've figured out how to build a life that isn't dependent on other people's approval. The conversation ends with me agreeing to think about it, but I already know my answer. 3 months later, I'm sitting in a conference room at UC Berkeley with Maya, her faculty advisor Dr. Sarah Kim, and 3 other graduate students who want to change how society handles digital shame and recovery. The nonprofit is called Authentic, not because we're selling authenticity as a brand, but because we're teaching the skills to develop it as a practice. Our theory of change, Maya explains to a room full of potential donors, is that most digital wellness programs focus on behavior modification. Don't post this, don't respond to that. But we focus on identity development. Who are you when nobody's watching? How do you make decisions based on your values instead of your audience? I watch her present with the confidence of someone who's never had her entire identity destroyed in public, and I feel simultaneously envious and protective. She has the idealism I lost. I have the scars she hasn't earned yet. My role is unusual. I'm not the founder or the executive director. I'm listed as Director of Lived Experience, a title we invented because traditional non-profit structures don't have a place for a person who survived the thing we're trying to help other people survive. The work is different from anything I've done before. Less performance, more substance. We develop curriculum based on research and best practices, not on what makes good television. We measure success by long-term behavior change, not viral moments or media coverage. The first retreat happens at a camp in Northern California. 20 teenagers who've all experienced some version of digital trauma, cyberbullying, viral shaming, online harassment, social media addiction, the usual suspects of modern adolescent suffering. I'm nervous in a way I haven't been since my first reality TV confessional. These kids didn't choose to be here because they want to meet a celebrity. They're here because they're in pain and they've run out of other options. I'm not going to tell you about resilience or bouncing back. I tell them during my first session. I'm going to tell you about the difference between surviving something and recovering from it. A girl named Emma raises her hand. What's the difference? Surviving means you're still breathing. Recovering means you're building a life you actually want to live. The conversations that follow are unlike anything from my media career. Raw, honest, unperformed. These kids don't care about my comeback story. They care about whether the skills we're teaching actually work. By the end of the week, something has shifted. Not just in them, though. Watching a 17-year-old realize they don't have to perform happiness for social media is pretty amazing. But in me, I've found the thing I was meant to do with whatever platform I still have. Not entertainment, not inspiration, education. Real, practical education about how to maintain your humanity in a digital world that profits from your insecurity. 6 months later, Authentic has a waiting list for retreats, a partnership with 3 school districts, and funding from a tech company that shall remain nameless but whose CEO wants to make amends for some of the damage their platform has caused. More importantly, we have proof that our approach works. Follow-up surveys show participants reducing their social media use without being told to, developing friend groups based on shared interests instead of online popularity, making decisions based on their own values instead of potential virality. We're getting requests to scale up, Maya tells me during one of our weekly check-ins. Franchise the program, license the curriculum, turn this into a national movement. The old me would have jumped at the opportunity. National movement, book deals, speaking tours, a chance to turn this work into the comeback story everyone expects. But I've learnt something about the difference between impact and attention, between changing the world and being famous for changing the world. What do you think? I ask her. I think we should be really careful about growing faster than our ability to maintain quality. I'd rather help 1,000 kids really well than help 10,000 kids badly. This is why I respect her. She's 20 years old and already understands something that took me a decade to learn. Sustainable change happens slowly, intentionally, with more focus on substance than scale. We decide to grow, but thoughtfully. More retreats, but with extensive training for facilitators. Curriculum licensing, but only to organizations that commit to our values and methods. Speaking engagements, but focused on education rather than inspiration. A year later, I'm interviewed for a documentary about digital wellness. Not about my comeback story, but about the work we're doing with Authentic. The interviewer, a serious journalist from PBS, asks the question I've been expecting. Do you see this work as redemption for your past mistakes? I think about it for a moment. No, I see it as the natural result of learning from my mistakes. Redemption implies I'm trying to balance some cosmic scale. But this work isn't about settling a debt. It's about using what I learned in the worst period of my life to help other people avoid or recover from similar experiences. So you don't feel you've redeemed yourself. I feel like I've become someone I can respect. Whether that counts as redemption depends on who's keeping score, and I've stopped paying attention to that scoreboard. The interview airs as part of a larger series on technology and mental health. My segment gets some attention on social media, mostly positive, though there are still people who think everything I do is calculated image rehabilitation. I don't read the comments. I haven't read comments in 3 years. Not because I'm avoiding criticism, but because other people's opinions of my work matter less than the actual results of the work itself. The real measure of success comes in emails like this one. Alex, I attended your retreat 2 years ago, after a really dark period in my life involving social media harassment. I wanted to let you know that I just got accepted to college and I'm planning to study social work. Your program didn't just help me recover from my trauma, it helped me figure out what I want to do with my life. Thank you for showing me that our worst moments can become the foundation for our most meaningful work. Sarah, that email, and dozens like it, matter more than any media coverage or industry recognition. They're proof that this work creates real value in the world, that my platform, however small or complicated its origins, is being used for something worthwhile. Late at night, when I can't sleep, I sometimes think about the person I was 10 years ago, the one who would have done anything for fame, who measured her worth by other people's attention, who thought success meant being talked about whether the talk was good or bad. I don't miss that person, but I don't hate her either. She was doing the best she could with the tools she had. Her mistakes led to growth. Her breakdown led to breakthrough. Her public humiliation led to private transformation. Most importantly, her story isn't over. None of our stories are over until we stop learning from them. The real comeback isn't about returning to who you were before everything went wrong. It's about becoming someone you never knew you could be. Someone who exists not despite your mistakes, but because of what your mistakes taught you about who you want to be. And that person, the one I'm still becoming, is someone I'm genuinely proud to be. Not because she's perfect, but because she's real. Not because everyone loves her, but because she knows how to love herself. That's a comeback worth working toward. Not for the cameras, not for the audience, but for the mirror. For the person looking back who finally recognizes herself as someone worth becoming. 5 years later, Authentic operates in 12 states and has helped over 3,000 young people develop healthier relationships with social media and public attention. Maya graduated with honors and now runs the organization full-time. I serve on the board and lead advanced retreats for young adults transitioning out of online fame. My coffee shop training turned out to be excellent preparation for non-profit work. Both jobs require showing up consistently, treating everyone with dignity, and making something meaningful out of ordinary moments. I still live in Portland, though in a better apartment now. I still see Dr. Chen once a month. I still volunteer at the community center, though now I help run their digital literacy program. Sam has been sober for 3 years. She works as a peer counselor and sends me terrible memes that make me laugh until I cry. My relationship with my mother has evolved into something resembling friendship. My relationship with my father remains complicated but no longer toxic. Some wounds heal, others just stop bleeding. I've learned to measure success not by attention received, but by attention given, not by followers gained, but by lives changed. Not by mistakes avoided, but by lessons learned and shared. Marcus and I exchanged Christmas cards last year. Neither of us apologized. Both of us have grown. Sometimes that's enough. I don't know if this counts as a comeback story, but it's the story of becoming someone who doesn't need to come back from anything, because she likes who she's becoming too much to risk losing herself again. The cameras stopped rolling, the real show began.